Hey everybody, it's good to be with you from Grissom Parkway this morning, and beautiful day out there, a little cooler, feels good. I want to talk to you about something that if you had a chance to look at the curriculum, you probably said, what in the world are we talking about this morning? But on our series on conflict and challenging people, we always bump into little situations as time goes on, and sometimes it's situations we create, and then sometimes it's situations that we just find ourselves in. So today's topic is two questions. The first one is, I work for a poor leader, what now? Of course, none of you are going to admit that you work for any kind of a poor leader, and so that's good. I hope you don't work for one, but here's the thing. Two schools of thought. One is, if you stay in banking long enough, eventually you're going to work for a leader that's challenging. That's just the way it's going to be. And then here's the second reality. If you're not careful, you may be that poor leader. So here's why we want to cover this content this morning, so that you can be self-aware that when you get that opportunity to be a leader, that you're not the poor leader. And even if you do bump into a poor leader in your career, it's your opportunity to help them. It's your opportunity to make them better, and you can have a huge impact on that. I know in my career, I look back and I've worked for a few poor leaders, and unfortunately, early in my career, I didn't help them a whole lot. I probably worked against them. I looked at them and thought they were a poor leader, knew they were a poor leader, and pretty much told everybody that they were a poor leader. That probably wasn't the right thing to do. But later in my career, I worked for some really poor leaders, and guess what? I tried to make them as good as I could make them, help them in any way I could to help them be successful, and made a huge difference. So I just want to encourage you as we're talking about this, be open-minded, not just for maybe where you are now, but as time goes on, be self-aware about this. So here's the thing. Wayne Dyer said this, how people treat you is their karma, but how you react is your karma, right? And so that's the thing. You want to make sure that no matter what the circumstances are and how you may find yourself being treated by a leader or somebody on your team, how you react really is all about you and says a lot about you. Here's another quote I want to share with you. Great leaders are willing to sacrifice the numbers to save the people. Think about that. Poor leaders sacrifice the people to save the numbers. Right? So the really strong leaders are going to be people focused. Poor leaders a lot of times are just focused on the numbers. It doesn't really matter about the people. So in your career as you move forward, think about that. It's about people. People really are the ones who are going to make those numbers in the long run anyway, right? But I have worked for leaders who every month, you know what, they considered salaries, they considered anything, any benefit, anything to make those numbers work. They weren't afraid to cut anything. You know, come up on a quarterly meeting and they were ready to slash people, put them on part-time, whatever. It didn't matter. You know, I mean, whatever would make those numbers work, people were expendable. That's not really a good leader. You know, you really need to focus on people. So here's the thing. If you think your leader is struggling in the role, nothing changes until something changes. I mentioned earlier, earlier in my career, I tended to not support poor leaders. I kind of wanted them out of the way. I didn't really want to support them. Well, here was what changed in that. If I wasn't trying to support and help and improve, what changed? The answer to that is absolutely nothing, right? The poor leader continued to be a poor leader. I continued to just be noise in the background, and that's just the way it was. And so nothing changes until something changes. So hopefully as leaders, and we all are, because why? We have influence, right? So leadership is influence. So the fact that we have influence means that we need to use that influence, even if it is to help other people, even if it's to help someone that you maybe don't even think deserves it. Maybe you don't think somebody even deserves that position or deserve that title. Well, guess what? You and I still have an obligation as a leader to help people and to influence people in a good way. And so we have to try to help in order to create change. Because again, nothing changes until something changes, right? So how about this? A lot of problems in the world would disappear if we talk to each other instead of about each other. Does that make sense? That fit me, like I said, at 21, 22 years old, 20 years old. I did a lot more talking about people than I did talking to people. Just the way it was, right? got a little older, a little wiser, went through the School of Hard Knocks, got my degree, right, in the School of Hard Knocks. Figured out that it was better to talk to people and not about them. And so it makes a huge difference. How about this? Although circumstances are always different, outcomes are usually the same. Teams and organizations suffer when poor leadership is present. And so here's the thing, if we're not careful, even if you, as you get promoted in your careers, if you're not careful, you'll tend to think it's about me. You'll get the role and you sort of become self-centered. It becomes about you and what you want, and you kind of get a boss mentality. Well, you know what? The boss mentality is kind of challenging at times. You really need to be more of a leader. You know? Take people with you, not tell people where to go. That could be a bumper sticker, couldn't it? All right, yeah. So here's the thing. Here's some ideas on how to move forward. So in other words, if you want to create the change, you're under a poor leadership situation, and you want to create some change, here's some things to think about. Consider you might be the problem. That's tough, isn't it? Consider you might actually be the problem. There's been a lot of situations that I've heard people talking about and I've kind of been in, and the person who actually was, you know, saying there was a problem was actually the problem. So stop. You might be the problem. Here's another thing. Is there specific evidence to support your opinion? Okay, so everybody's got an opinion, right? Yes? Y'all caffeinated? Yes? Okay. Yeah, everybody's got an opinion. But here's the thing. Be specific. Okay, it's important to be specific about why you have an opinion. Know what? Know why. All right, the worst thing in the world I hear people, you know, when they're trying to engage someone is to make these generalizations. You know, heard somebody have one yesterday and said, "We always do it this way." And my first question was, really? Always? Every single time? Always. What does always mean? Every single time. And every single time you do it this way. Well, you know, not every single time. Well, specifically, how many times do you do it this way? Let's just pick a number. Out of 10, how many times do, well, I'm not really sure. Wait, hang on. Before you start talking about always, be specific. The bottom line, it was probably 1 out of 100, not always, right? So when we really boiled it down, it was maybe 1 out of 100 and not always. Yeah, so think about it before you start kind of expressing yourself, all right? Because here's the thing, what we often try to do is if we are feeling it emotionally, we tend to express ourselves in these really big generalizations. But if we've really processed it cerebrally, we do what? It can be very, very precise and specific. All right? So think about that. It's really important. So here's the thing. Number 3, assess your influence and credibility with the leader. I hope you've built some trust with them. So if you've got a poor leader and you get ready to speak with them, I hope you've built a relationship with them. Because it's very difficult to approach somebody about an issue if there's no credibility and you don't have a relationship, because they're very suspect of your motives, just as you probably are theirs, right? So it's kind of hard to have that real conversation unless you've made the effort to build up that relationship. Neil Postman said this, the credibility of the teller, not this kind of teller, by the way, the credibility of the teller is the ultimate test of the truth of a proposition. So the point being is your credibility is going to determine whether or not the argument holds water or not. Does that make sense? If you've got no credibility with them, probably not going to go very far in the conversation. Think about this. Think through every possible outcome. You know, I can't tell you the number of people that we talk to and run into a situation and they don't think through all of the possibilities. Most people don't think a lot. That's sad, but it's true today. Most people don't think a lot. So even in trying to address situations, a lot of people just charge right in and want to solve the problem without really thinking about all the outcomes. So I just suggest to you, stop and think, all right, about all the possible outcomes before you charge in. But then once you have decided that something needs to be done, that something needs to be addressed, then you've got to decide to act. You can't just sweep it under the rug and ignore it. Again, nothing changes till something changes, right? So if you've got some ideas, some things that you can share, ways that you can make things better, then you go in. Now again, remember the emotion is past now, right? And we've thought about all the outcomes. We've assured ourselves we're not the problem. And so now we're coming in to try to act and help. That's the goal, to help and make things better. So decide to act. Speak to your leader and speak in private. Worst thing you can do is try to have that conversation in the lobby or in an office with the door open. You know, if there's a hard conversation that needs to take place. Because, like, listen, if you're in leadership, do you really like being called on the carpet in front of people? Even if you're not the supervisor or manager, do you like being called on the carpet in front of people and pointing your faults out or issues? No, we don't, right? So make sure it's in private. So here's the thing, meet with them, outline your complaint, and then figure out a solution. And here's what I always tell people, listen, if you come into an office and you got a problem, please come with a solution. Don't just come and say, we got a problem. Because the first thing that I would ask you is, well, how do we fix it? And if you hadn't thought about it enough to figure out how to fix it, I'm probably not really interested in your opinion. That's just the way I'm kind of wired. And I think a lot of leaders are. The issue is that if you've identified a problem, then you should have thought about it enough to create a solution. And let me just tell you this, if you want to move your careers forward, you know the way most really strong leaders are identified early in their career? Anybody got a thought on that? Fix a problem. If you can fix problems, guess what? You get people's attention. That's free advice. I'm not going to charge y'all for that, all right? But I'm telling you, if you can fix issues, people will notice. Even if it's something totally out of the box, right? People are going to notice. Fix problems. It'll mean a lot. All right, here's the thing. You've shared. You've tried to help. You've offered solutions. You've done it all right. It's not you. You're doing all the things that you need to do, but it's still not getting better. What do? You got a decision to make, right? What's the song? Do I stay or do I go? Right? So you gotta, I don't sing well, so my wife says there's two things about me that I don't do well. One is I'm not funny, and number two is I don't sing. So I'm not gonna sing for you. All right, I might try to be funny, but it probably won't go over well. But anyway, do I stay or do I go? You gotta make a decision on that. Is it too much of a problem to deal with, or is it something that you can fix? So here's the thing, if you stay, okay, this is really important, all right? I can't tell you the number of people that I know have got to this point and have decided to stay, and it was a mistake. And because here's why. If you stay, give your best and publicly support the leader. Publicly support the leader. I can't tell you the number of people who've decided to stay and then would not support the leader. Undermined. Work behind the scenes. Don't do that, all right? Don't do that. That doesn't work well for you, and it won't in the long run because people will know what's going on. So here's the questions you got to ask. If you stay, am I going to add value? All right, am I going to add value? And am I going to be able to personally align? All right, personally align. Because listen, if you don't, how many of you have driven a car that was out of alignment? The tires were out of alignment. What happens? It wants to go this way and you're trying to drive it this way, right? So it's going, it's always doing this and it feels, some cars you just kind of sit and you just kind of, it sort of drive themselves. When it's out of alignment, you feel like you're fighting it constantly, right? Well, personal alignment's the same way. If you don't align with the company values and you don't align with the values of your leader, then guess what? It's like fighting that car that's out of alignment. You're always at odds, right? And that's not a good place to be. The company's not moving forward when that happens. So make sure if you stay, those are the two things you got to do. You can make sure you align, and then make sure you're adding value. All right? All right. Y'all look like y'all want to change topics. So we will. We're going to shift gears a little bit, okay? Y'all are like, okay, this poor leader thing. Wow, okay. Here it is. How do you work with a leader who doesn't like you? Has anybody ever worked for somebody? I know it's not the case now, but have you ever worked for somebody that doesn't like you? Absolutely, yeah, okay. If you've been in banking very long, that's probably going to happen. You just, for whatever reason, you just don't click. But you know what? You got to show up to work every day and grind through it, right? So here's the thing. So we hide from them, right? We hinder them and we harm them. That's the way to do it. They don't like me, so I do all the H's, right? No? Okay, I see head shaking. Thank you. Yeah, so here's the thing. This is the mindset that I want to instill in you, and instill this in everybody you can influence in the bank, okay? And it's this: if you ever want to be a boss, stop thinking like an employee. That's good stuff, all right? If you ever want to be a boss, stop thinking like an employee. I can't tell you the number of teams that I have been on, and everybody thought like an employee, and nobody thought like a boss. And so what was it? It was just a gripe session, right? Everybody sitting around talking about everything that was wrong. It's negative, negative, negative. Boy, I love going to places to work like that, don't you? Yeah. But what happens if you're not careful, you kind of buy into that. And so you got to rise above the fray. You know, you've got to rise above and think differently. And you know what? Sometimes that's challenging because you get in that and people look at you and then say, well, who do you think you are? Right? Who do you think you're going to be one day? You're never going, you're going to be just like us. You're never going anywhere here. You're as far as you're going to go. Anybody ever heard that? Yeah, they're never going to pick you. They're never going to recognize you. You're never going to have a chance here. Has anybody ever heard that? Yeah. Well, I heard that. And, you know, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid when I was really young. I sort of said, gosh, you know, I mean, these people have been here a long time. I mean, they know what's going on, and they don't think I can do this. And that lasted about 30 seconds. And I thought, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, you know. And so I just look at them and say, I'll be your boss one day. I really made a lot of friends that way. But that's what you'd have to do. You'd have to just look and say, listen, I don't think that way. I'm not going to be that way. I'm going to be a bank president one day. I can be whatever I want to be. It's, you know, I don't like the way you're thinking. I don't like the way you're talking. Right? And you have to rise above that. But if you're not careful, you stay right in that groove, and it gets ugly, right? And so you got to make a change. You can't fall into that. You can't be like that. So again, the bumper sticker. If you ever want to be a boss, stop thinking like an employee. Good stuff, all right? So here's the suggestions. Process your emotions. Most people who are simply employees don't process their emotions. They do what? They express their emotions, right? I'm having a bad day. I want everybody to know it. I'll give you a good example. Ooh, this was not good. Anyway, we had, my mother is in a hospital. Let me say it like that. She's in a hospital, and she's had knee replacement, and I can't say enough good things about all of the touches that she's gotten from all of the nurses, all of the doctors, all of the staff. It has just been phenomenal, just been wonderful, until last night. And this lady was getting off work. It was about 30 minutes before a shift change, and you know, my mother needed some care, and it took about 20 minutes for somebody to respond, and things didn't go real well. And this person came in with attitude. This person came in with, I don't care, I'm not helping, you're on your own. I mean, it just wasn't good, you know, it just wasn't good. And I thought to myself, you don't represent this place very well. You know, I'm sure if I had you on camera right now that your employer would find that to be true, and you would probably be working somewhere else next week, more than likely. But I didn't. But here's my point. This lady had obviously something else on her mind. It wasn't her job. She was ready to go home. Cell phone rang. Husband was in the parking lot to pick her up. What's my point? Why am I telling you that story? What was happening with her emotions? Yeah, I mean, you know, she had already shifted from working to going home, and obviously I don't know what was happening, but her emotions were on the outside. And so what happened is everybody knew it. All right, I knew it. Everybody in the room knew it. So here's the point: you have to process your emotions. So employees generally express their emotions. So here's the thing. Another one: look for common ground. Always look for common ground with people. Don't think that your way is the only way. Always look for common ground. And you're looking at me like I'm out of time, so I'm close. All right. So here's the thing. Okay, 1 minute. Wow. All right, I can do this. All right, be consistent and pleasant. Always try to be consistent. Doesn't matter what's going on. Be consistent. Be pleasant. Listen, a lot of times people have a employee attitude. They think, who cares? They're more concerned about themselves. They've got a very self-centered mindset, not a other-centered mindset. Be considerate of everybody around you, okay? Here's another one, solve problems. I mentioned that a while ago. You need to be a problem solver. Don't just come up with all the problems, and don't be the problem solver. And here's one of my favorite Zig Ziglar quotes. There are no traffic jams on the extra mile, all right? So point is, get out of the pool of average and climb into that mode where you're going to do more and be more. And then what's going to happen is you'll find yourself on the extra mile. And there ain't a lot of people out there on the extra mile. If you want to get noticed in your bank and move in your career, you be the person that's out there doing the extra mile. And I promise you, people will pay attention. Here's the last thing I'm going to share with you. And it says this: sometimes the easiest way to solve a problem is to stop participating in the problem. All right? So whenever you see challenges out there, don't dive into the challenge to be a part of it. Step away from it to solve it. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, I'm out of time. Everybody, yes, okay, good. I'm out of time. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all. Have a good day.